Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and thank you for being back here in room 8. Now, the next session is called Testing is Boring Until Now, and that is a promise made by Luc van Vught and Tine Staric.
Are they all here just because it's boring?
I don't know. Do you think, are you here because testing is boring?
Why are you here then? Come on. Well, that's a good option, yeah.
Okay, welcome. Welcome to Testing is Boring. Until now.
Come on, come on.
My name is Tine Staric. I'm an architect with Companion, but I think the only thing you need to know about me today is that I'm a huge test automation enthusiast, a big test automation advocate, but I kind of pale in comparison with Luc. So maybe Luc, could you introduce yourself for people who don't know you?
What did you need to know about me? No, I'm here because this is always a fight. Well, no, it's always whatever enthusing moment to talk about testing, in my opinion. I hope the boring word is going to disappear.
The way I would describe Luc is that he's kind of like the godfather of test automation in Business Central, because he wrote books about it, he wrote blogs about it, he talked about it for many years. But you should have seen his face when I proposed back in January, hey Luc, could we do a session where we say testing is boring until now? And it was like,
I consented to walk away.
yeah, he didn't like that title. But I insisted, and here we are. Anyway, last year I was doing a session at a different conference, which I titled, I'm willing to fight for test automation, and I think you should too. The premise of that talk was that I, as a developer, I like to write tests. But maybe sometimes the consultants, they don't want to see me write tests. Or maybe the product owners, they don't want to see me write tests. Or the managers, they don't want to see me write tests. Or maybe sometimes I'm one of those roles, and developers, they don't want to write tests. Right? The session was all about how they push back against the arguments why we need test automation and how we push back against those pushbacks. But for today, for all of you, I do kind of expect that we all agree that testing is important and that test automation is important. But just to get us all on the same page, I took two of the main takeaways from the session last year. Why do we want to do test automation? Why should we care about test automation? Well, the first reason is that when you build a feature, you want to test that feature. And if it works, you ship it to your customers. But then the next time, when you build another feature, you're not sure if this feature breaks anything from the first feature, so you kind of have to test both of them. And then for the third one, you have to test all three of them. And you can kind of see from the picture here that the regression testing, it takes more and more and more and more time. And if you don't do test automation, you're going to start drowning in regression tests.
Boring.
Boring, so
That's
boring.
boring.
And the problem with drowning in regression tests is that the answer to it is usually, let's just not test, right? And that's when you famously get this picture. A bug found in production is so much more expensive to fix compared to a bug found in the earlier stages, in the stage of requirements or design or coding or even testing. So the first kind of argument why we need test automation is because otherwise we're going to drown in regression tests. But there's another reason why we cannot rely on manual testing for regression tests. The value of manual tests is only there on the day you perform manual tests. The next time when you build another feature, the value of those manual tests, it's no longer there. But with automated tests, the value of an automated test is there from the moment you create it all the way into the future, because you can run it again and again and again, every day, every hour, every minute if you want to. So the second reason why we want to build test automation is because its value goes into the future, while manual testing stays only on the day when we perform the tests. So these are kind of the two main takeaways. And I think now we're all on the same page. Why do we want to do test automation? But then the problem is that it's kind of boring, you know? So
What do you want me to say?
Yeah. If you're still kind of early into this, let's say, adventure of test automation, there's a brilliant webinar by Xavi on Aropa channel. So if you want to know more about that, here's the QR code for it.
Use it. It was for me also
It's one of the best.
kind of eye-opening.
It is, it is.
Actually, the title is Tests Are Bets. That makes it even more, I think, appealing.
Yeah. How much should we test? Should we test everything?
So what are we going to do today?
So for today, we're gonna talk about first a little bit about traditional testing, the boring part, and then what makes testing no longer boring with page scripting, and then with data-driven testing. And when we are going to introduce these additional testing practices, in the end, we're gonna try to tie everything together, how it all comes together. And of course, we're gonna do a bit of a recap.
Yeah.
But I think for traditional testing, there's no one better to introduce it than the godfather of traditional testing.
I'm already elevating. You might recall, some of you that were here 3 years ago, I did a presentation with Nikola Kukrika from Microsoft, and this was one of his statements, which actually I always recall, and at that point I thought, well, this is straight to the point. Test automation should save you time, yeah, or money. If not, you're not doing something, you're not going to do something well, it's something wrong. If it's like over budget again, like many projects because of testing that is postponed, whatever, if you don't manage to bring down your cost with test automation, the statement was, you're doing something wrong. Keep that in mind somehow. And with the things we're going to show you, and of course what has been already there, in my opinion and in my experience, it's really going to help you to bring down your cost. But before we do, before we go into the different parts, as Tine showed you in the agenda, let me discuss a little bit on my favorite topic. They call it hobby horse, I believe in English. In Dutch, it's stokpaardje. Something I always ride, because it's not just the fun of it, but it's the importance of it. Why or how can you test something if you have no plan? And a plan could be, of course, like I'm experienced, I've got some internal plan, this is what I always do, but then still nobody can check what you're doing and nobody can repeat it when you're not there. So this test plan concept is something that I actually through test automation really got into it. Working as a tester at Microsoft, manual tester, you had to do this also more or less. What is a test plan is a list of scenarios, the things we're going to implement. At 4PS, where I'm part-time working, the discussion is, should we change the name to scenario plan or scenario list? It's not defining tests, it's what we're going to build. And as such, what are we going to build? We're going to build user scenarios. We're going to enable a user to do something. That's what this list tells you. Yeah? And as such, it defines theoretically, maybe it's too big sometimes, all the different behaviors of the system. Like you slap me on the face on my right side and I cry, and you slap me on the left side and then I think, now I'm going to slap you, whatever. That's a behavior. And each thing is a different one. So in this case, there's a multitude of behaviors defined by all those scenarios, right? And as such, as we know the behavior, that's what we're going to check. Yeah, that's the set of tests, actually. A test, in my opinion, should not define, oh, this is it. We're going to test that the outcome is showing this. That's what we're going to check through. But what led to that? There could be a million different ways to get there. Yeah? And if we just say check that the outcome is there, with one option, I'll already show it. No, you need to define the scenarios. And as such, you could even say it's a translation of the pros in your requirement. Even if it's user stories, it's the translation of this is what we're going to build. In the workshop we did this week, actually, I left him on Wednesday to do him on his own. We used AI to create a test plan. And I think we did get quite nice results. Why this test plan? So not as such what. Yeah, why a test plan? It's a great tool. That's from what I found out by doing also, it's a great tool to review the requirements. At 4PS, we started with this. The goal was test automation, but we started with this. Challenge the requirement. I've got 6 scenarios. Wait, Isn't there a seventh? Or maybe somebody else could say, it's much more easy to discuss. It's not something, oh yeah, okay, we understand the requirements, and then you sit down, start programming, and you think, what the heck? Is this an option? Is this an option or a variation, right? Sorry, one too fast to keep a focus on this one. As such, it's also a great way to get developers included in the knowledge of and the testers and documenters if you include them. So it's a way of sharing the knowledge already. And that's an important part to drive the quality of your software. Yeah? If you're not able to come up with the scenarios, your requirements are running short. Yeah? They are not complete enough. Okay, so that's a bit about the test plan as such, an example, and that's a little bit about what you will see in the code examples also. This is an example from 4PS. We use, at that point, just a plain Excel sheet, start to create some columns, etc., etc. But there is always a same structure in it. The first part is always, let's say, the functional area. What is the user story in our case, and in what part on that user story we're going to focus. Yeah? And then there's always a part where we give each scenario a unique number, and as a third part, of course, that's the most important part, the description of the scenario. Those who have been in the workshop, I'm quite strict on how you phrase that, because it should be a user action. AI came up with attempt to do. Wait, a user is not attempting to do something. A user is going to do something. And if the attempt is not going to succeed, it is, and that's the last column. My clicker is probably, I'm walking too far away, but it's a positive negative test. If it doesn't succeed, it fails, right? So this is a bit about the test plan. If you want to know more, in my book or various presentations at Areopa, one with Christopher sitting here. So they all relate somehow to this. Yeah. So this is my point, to step into traditional testing, what we now call traditional testing.
The boring part, right?
Yeah. Okay. The boring part, the boring testing. Why we call it traditional testing? This is the part of test automation where we write AL-coded tests. Yeah? And this has been possible for quite a while, but let's say it started to accelerate due to the push into extensions, and first of all, that you need to deliver for app stores an app with test app, right? So what is this about? This is about defining actually your automated tests by coding them in AL, because the platform allows us to do that. Yeah? By the way, NAV 2009 Service Pack 1, that was in the summer of 2009. That's almost 16 years ago. 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And the thing here is, the platform didn't allow you... Sorry, let me... I got a cold this week. So the platform didn't allow you to set up one test with a whole bunch of variations. So each unique scenario should be coded as a unique test. You will see in some of the examples. And that's what I've been advocating for quite a while. So let me show some examples. I put them on screen here because I'm not going to dive too much in the code. By the way, before we do, our red thread is this business case. Extended text on assembly documents. You might all know the feature somehow that you have extended text on sales and purchase documents. By the way, no.
He's got a very long password, that's why.
Did I put on my caps lock? No, I didn't. It's not easy to get to my laptop.
Oh, there we
By the way, I'm going to sneeze my nose, so you might maybe mute my microphone. You said boring. I'm getting emotional. So, in short, what I want to show you,
Should I switch?
and we're going to switch it. If I'm right, it's going to switch. And it did, but then it should open up. Yeah. So in short, this is an extension to the standard functionality. You have extended text on items, on resources, GL accounts, I believe, and on purchase, sales documents, service documents, job planning lines. I also believe you can add one of those and it will add some extra explanatory text. Yeah, so I do have an item here. I call it BC something. So let's have a look. Yeah, BC something, BC item, and this BC item has automatic extended text turned on. And therefore I created an extra extended text, yeah, and I turn it on for assembly order. And if I create an assembly order, whatever, you might see, I do need to have more in the header than this one. So if I'm adding that item, you can see, you should see that it, as you can see, adds an extra line. Just to have everybody in line. It's not rocket science. The feature has been in one of my repos for quite an age already. Feel free to go there and take it from there. Yeah. So the code examples relate to this, and actually, it's about 60 to 90 tests altogether. Oh, I'm going the other way around. And you could say these are, if I go back, these are the three scenarios I will focus on first. I'm adding an item line like I did just now on an assembly order or an assembly quote or an assembly or blanket assembly order it's called. And then I'm going to test that. For those familiar to given when then, I always explode this thing and I define, okay, what is the circumstances, what are the circumstances, the givens, what is the when, and what is the then. By the way, what you saw just now, the first given, I have an item with all things set. I create an assembly order, I add the item, that's the when, and then, as the then you see that the extended text get added. I'm a bit struggling with my voice. I'm going to sneeze one more. I thought on Tuesday evening, am I going to make it with my voice? So far, so good.
I think you sound great.
Well, it's not too bad. These are the three code examples, and each of the example, or each of the tests, I should say, has a number. And you see the code in each of them. This will move to the second one, and it's more or less the same. Yeah, and the third one, it's more or less the same. So in that collection of 60 to 70 tests, there are even 9 of those and 9 of others. So it's a lot of work, and I think, well, okay, that's the boring part. And then you're lucky with this one, there's only 2 givens. Some might know from your own work, but I surely have sometimes one with 20 givens all the way, because we're so depending on the data. Yeah, and that's a traditional. By the way, the workshop and the sessions I did with Christopher is about how getting your code much better so your testing becomes easier. Yeah, but that was not the goal for today, because we're going to show you some other things. Okay. And that's the result. So
now let's talk about some more fresh topics in the world of testing. Now, I had this huge plan for how I'm going to introduce page scripting to you, but then Vincent threw a big wrench this morning. You know, I was about to say how I still remember from 2 years ago how he introduced page scripting in the from the lab part, and I got super excited about that tool, and that I know a lot of you know page scripting, you've seen page scripting, and how this is going to be just kind of a reminder for all of us what page scripting can do, how you can use it. But then after this morning's from the lab session, I feel like this is again the boring part, and what he did is the interesting thing. So I don't know, I think I'll have to redo this next year. Still, I do want to show you briefly like what is page scripting, right? In one sentence, it's a tool that can help you record steps in Business Central that you can then later replay. So I'm gonna try to build a test automation for the feature that Luke just presented to us.
Yeah.
I have to switch to my screen. You're seeing it? Yeah. Let me log in real quick. So, with page scripting, where do you find it? You go to the cogwheel and you have an action here, page scripting preview. You won't see it if you don't have the permissions to work with page scripts. There are two permission sets, one to record, one to replay. You need to have the appropriate permissions to work with this, so not every user can use page scripting. But once you do have permissions, you click it. Starting with page scripting is super simple. You click Start New, and from this moment on, as soon as this red button here starts pulsating, whatever I click in the system gets recorded. So if I navigate to Items to reproduce the business case Luke introduced before, you can see that it recorded me navigating to items. And I can create a new item. I can select a template for a new item. I can turn on the automatic extended texts, give it a description, item with X text. Now, later on, when we are going to create the assembly order, we will try to validate that the first line of the assembly order has the description from the item card and that the second line comes from the extended texts. In order for me to be able to validate at that point whatever I've just put in, I'm going to first copy this value. Because when you are recording your page scripts, when you right-click a field, you get this page scripting option available, and you can copy the value. I'm also going to copy the item number, because in the assembly order, I want to specify this item that I've created in the first part of the page script. So I'm going to do the same thing here, page scripting and copy. And you can see that it records that as additional steps of the script. Now here, I'm just going to throw in a bit of a best practice when it comes to page scripting. When you're entering values with page scripting, like purchasing code, you might be tempted to just click on the value from this drop-down menu. Don't do that. The problem with page scripting is that if here I click drop ship, it won't record that I've clicked drop ship. It will record that I've selected the second row on the drop-down menu. So if later on we add an additional purchasing code, something that starts with A, something that starts with B, you can kind of imagine that when I would be replaying this script, I wouldn't be selecting drop ship, I would be selecting call in. So the best practice when you're recording page scripts is to always go to the select from full list and then filter down your selection so that it only has the entry that you actually want to click. In my case, I'm going to type drop. And you'll notice that this drop filtering becomes part of the recording. And now that I only see one line here, I can click it, and that gets selected, recorded.
So now, make sure to filter on the primary key.
Yes, filter on the primary key. I don't actually need the purchasing code for our example today, but I have all of these steps recorded. And if you want to undo a step while you're recording, you can click the three dots here, and you can delete. You cannot go back in the middle and delete a certain step that's in the middle here. You can only delete the last step. And what I really liked is that Vincent kind of experienced that pain firsthand today. He couldn't go and delete that missed entry. So I do hope that maybe they're going to fix that, and we will be able to go in the middle of the script and modify the parts there, modify the steps. But today we still kind of have to delete all of these steps one by one. So let me just remove everything that here relates to the purchasing code. Delete, 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 delete. One more, one more, one more. Okay. And now I can continue with entering the extended texts for my item. So I'm going to navigate to extended texts, create a new one, give it a description, extended text.
And while you type, do you notice it only records the action, not where you select it? That's one of the major values here. I don't know any of you working in an organization using visual test tools like Selenium or whatever. That's a big pain in the ass. Because if Microsoft comes up with a new version, everything is moved, and all of a sudden all your scripts breaks. But here, you can, as long as it's visible, you can move it anywhere.
Yeah. So we are going to validate if the second line in the assembly order is added, so I'm gonna have to copy this value as well. But now that we've created our item with the extended text, let's go out of all of these pages and let's navigate to assembly orders. Okay, let's create a new one. I'm gonna set the type to an item. And now here the number, right? I don't want to select the number. I want to enter the same number that I've created in the first part of the script. So what I'm going to do is right-click, page scripting, paste, and you can see here my whole clipboard. So the description from the item card, the number from the item card, the extended text line, I need to paste in the number. And now we can see the 2 lines have been added. I can now validate them for this to actually become an automated test, not just a recording of steps that should execute. So I can right-click the description field, page scripting, validate, current value is equal to the clipboard entry. The first line should be equal to the description that I copied from the item card. And I'm gonna do the same thing for the line 2 here. Validate current value, extended text lines. And that was sort of like a brief introduction of how do you record a page script. And then, once you have it recorded, you can replay it to ensure that this functionality works. Now, to replay it, I first have to rewind to the beginning. But now, if I just click play, it won't work. Because the first step says navigate to items, but we're already on the assembly order. So this is kind of the second best practice when it comes to page scripting. Start your recordings from role center. Always, because then you won't have this ambiguity of where should I stand when I execute this recording. So I'm gonna navigate back to my role center, and I'm gonna click play. And what you'll see that now all of these steps are being executed step by step. We're creating the item, we're creating the extended text, and in the end, we're also validating if everything works. So I just created an automated test, but I don't have to be a developer to do this. And that's where I see like the biggest value of page scripting. I know in this room, most of you, if not all of you, are developers. But that means creating test automation is, well, very development effort heavy. But with these tests, which, yeah, they're not as good as AL tests, I would say, but we can have consultants create tests. But you can also look at it beyond the testing potential. This is a very good tool for reporting bugs. Because I have many times received a message, something doesn't work from a consultant. Right? And I'm like, okay, but what were you even trying to do? And even as a consultant, you get an email from your end customers saying, I got this issue that there's nothing to post. Well, yeah, okay, but what were you trying to post in the first place when you got that error? So, you know, if I can teach you to start using page scripting and you can teach your consultants that they use page scripting and they teach the end customers to use page scripting, then we won't only get the screenshots of the errors, we can get these recordings that we can replay. And maybe the recording won't work in our containers because the data isn't set up the right way. But at least from the recording, you can see what they were trying to do. And that can help a lot with troubleshooting the issues.
I mean, creating those documents, I don't know, Word document attachment or whatever to get all the repro steps.
Yeah,
it's quite an effort.
Yeah. So with these scripts, you can save them here, and it will say that you might be containing some sensitive data in the recording, so be careful what you do with it. Yeah. And you get back a YAML file. But about the YAML file, Luke is going to talk more about that. So this was just kind of a brief, high-level overview of how do you record scripts with page scripting tool and how do you replay them, and that this no longer needs to be a developer's job to create some test automation.
At 4PS, we have still quite a backlog on automated coded tests, and we have quite a number, luckily, of manual testers which have scripted everything, so they rerun that on frequent basis, you could say. But every time, like if you go back to the graph that Tina showed, manual testing has a short value, a short time stretch, and after that it's gone. Yeah, you do it again, but it's the same investment. You're not going to win time or money on that. And we have decided with the next regression test run, we're going to spend an extra week to do recordings. So all the testers will profit from it in the next time. And that's also was the second graph. As soon as you automated things, it's a long-lasting value, and you can run it anytime. But as a kind of step to something later on also. What I'm going to talk to, yeah, I think the clicker works, is shortly about the YAML. So as Tina showed, you can save it, and that will be saved into the YAML format. For those who are not familiar with it, the meaning of YAML is yet another markup language, so like HTML, XML, whatever, another markup language. And the format is used also in pipelines in Azure DevOps, for example, so for those who are familiar. I show you a little bit. It's not about getting you to know everything, but what Tina just said or showed, you can only delete the last step. Of course, I can go into the YAML file and remove anything what I want. Yeah, so editing in the YAML file is possible. It's a challenge, and yes, especially if you talk about enabling non-technical people to record, test. Yeah, quite some testers in our organization, but you're not expecting that we're going to, no, not really, but we can. So elaborate a little bit on this. The YAML files that we use are actually, maybe it's in general YAML files, you will find steps, and I'll show you an example, but in those steps, you have different types of what a step can do. Navigate, well, you saw some things as displayed in the page scripting pane, navigating to a certain page. Invoking, I don't know if you saw it, but when he pushed that button to get to the extended text, it's going to invoke something and opening up a page. Well, page is the page that's going to be shown. Closing a page is being closed. Yeah, so the close page is the action, and that is done. It's the state, you could say, and there are a number more. Focus, you might have seen as soon as Tina clicked on another field, moved to another field, whatever, however he did it, that's focus, putting the focus on another field control. By the way, for me, this is a lot of noise in the recording, because often you click somewhere, oh yeah, like you did, I think, even in between, and it's not the field where you want to be, but it records it and you see it jumping. You could maybe write a routine to clean it out. Input, setting the input where he put a value in the description, and then jumping to a certain row where Tina actually said, don't do that. Yeah, preferably I would even say don't go even open that page and go filtering. No, you know the value already. Type it in. Just type item in it, and the system will validate and accept that. Yeah, and copying the value, that's putting that on that let's say page scripting clipboard where you can start reusing it somewhere else. Let me quickly jump to this one here. This is more or less the script that Tina was recording, and I collapsed a lot of things. You see all those types of steps happening. There's one at the top I'll discuss after this, but then navigate, page shown, invoke, validate, all kinds of things. If we would just elapse everything, sorry, the other way around, here, yeah, you will see everything of the recording. And I could go in if I want and manipulate, because he saved it, but I can also import it. Yeah, and that's the whole idea. Especially the case, well, especially surely the case if you talk about a bug, or like me, I'm sitting developing, I think, wait, I don't think this is okay, or I don't understand, or it doesn't work. Let me record it and I'll send it to my product owner. Hey, you're not here today, but I'm working in this environment, and I don't know what's happening in that step. Something goes different than I'm expected. Please replay. Yeah. So, what do? Well, let me shortly show you here. So, if the tool is open, I can now go here to Open Recording, and I can select one of my scripts. You see a number of them. By the way, all the examples we have are in a GitHub repo. At the end, there will be a link to that, so you can also make use of it. So let's open this one. This is more or less the scenario that Tine did record just now, and I go and replay. So replay, if you were recording, you might rewind and then click on play, and it's going to execute the actions that I recorded. Yeah, it's. I must say, I always say UI is slow. UI is slow. If you program this, it's way faster. Yeah, and but compared to what you can do, and even like internally we use a tool called Ranorex as a visual test tool, a generic one. The testers were looking at it like, wow, this is fast. So compared to many of those tools, this is fast. However, and I don't know if you realized, you said you need to close all your windows. Yeah. As you can see in my case, and as a tip, execute or exercise the discipline that what you open, close it. Yeah. If a window stays open and you run it the next time again, you probably get a failure because of more or less what you said. So make sure you go up, you get things in place, you execute, and you go down again. Let's say you build up the tent, you have fun, it's in the summer, and then you go back home, break it down again. Okay. Let's go back to this one here. So a little bit about this YAML. Not going to do much more except for the next part. As you could have seen in my listing, or at least of the YAML I showed you, there's also a possibility to include. And what does include mean? Include means is that you can point to include another YAML file. Yeah? Those who are familiar with test tools, also like in Test Manager in Azure DevOps, you have shared steps, and shared steps are those steps that you're going to recurrently doing. Yeah? So if you want to maintain it in one place, well, then make a shared step, because every time you need that item or you need that customer or whatever. Yeah? And in that context, what we're currently doing at 4PS, setting up how we're really going to do this, is that we're discussing about this one. Always be aware of preconditions in what you're going eventually to exercise. So like in our case, like Tine did also, create an item, append extended text to it, set the item that to that switch automatic extended text, and that's the preparations. Yeah, or you could even argue, yeah, what do I need more on assembly order? Actually, for this test, nothing more, just a header, and you go to the line. So that's the preps, and then you go to execute, you open up an assembly order. You could say, okay, creating the assembly order, the header could be part of the preconditions, the preps, and then you insert the item in the line. Yeah. So to show you, and actually, let's go back to my side here. So how does that look like? In this file, as you could see when I collapsed everything, there is this include section, this include section, reference is a file. Yeah? And a file, in this case, relative to where my file is, in what I call preconditions. And this creates an item with automatic extended text turned on, and of course extended text, and without number series. I'll elaborate a little bit on that, but let's first have a look at this one. So if we go here, I could now open that one. So I have a file here with includes. Yeah. That's something you need to do. It needs to get access to your file system. And for that, by the way, your container should have a certificate.
Yeah,
you need to use HTTP, otherwise you can't access the file system. And you can see I do have this folders here, so it needs to select the folders. So the first one, I know my include is from the preconditions folder. Yeah. The second one, the second include is from the post conditions. And then the third one, it asks, may I access the folder where your script is in? This is a challenge in pipelines. To be honest, haven't addressed that yet. I know Tobias Fencer has been, or the team related to Alpaca has been working on that. And to be honest, I was so busy, I should have dived into it, but I didn't. What do we see, by the way? Hey, you get a line here now with this triangle to collapse and elapse. That's my post-condition file, which is included at the start, and I didn't show you, but I also have an include at the end. Delete, assembly order, and item. Yeah? To show you, by the way, I could run each of them separately, so I could say, run the preconditions. Let me check which one it was, without, yeah? This one. So I can run this, and that will create an item for me with extended text. Yeah? And then I could do the main flow. I open the main one without includes. I really need to say it because of myself that I'm really doing this because well, my demo didn't go that well, but that was due to the fact that I was maybe talking too much well, I'm always talking too much to some. So it runs it, it has created the assembly order, and yes, if I would go into assembly orders, I will see we do have, oh, sorry, let's type it more fully. Here. Yeah. You will see there is this assembly order just created. Okay, so now I'll do the post conditions and it will clean everything out for me. Yeah. Well, I have to do this in 3 steps. I can do this with that one file having the includes. Apparently something else happened, probably because I didn't save that window. Actually, that's it, and it's a good demo as such. Let's run the other one, then we can see it runs it all in one go. So here, this is with includes. Yeah, select the folder, sorry, the preconditions, select the other one. So it can run past everything right now. Okay, I didn't clean it up. But talk too much, that's a good one. Nevertheless, so in that way you can include things and share things between different recordings. Yeah, there was one thing coming by, but I'll probably get back to that later. That I wanted.
Maybe you can tell us how does that all compare to traditional testing? How do you see like page scripting if you would compare it now with traditional?
So if we put those things next to each other, on the left side the page scripting part, the right side traditional, you could say the page scripting is typically for, let's say, non-developer. Of course, use it also as a developer, but as the focus on test automation, getting the tests automated, that's a developer work. The road to it is, I think it's a team effort, it's a functional thing. We don't implement tests just because we're developers, we implement tests because we have requirements. But you give power to the more functional roles. You could say within a development organization, the QA roles, within the context of our relations with customers to end users. And you could say roughly in this talk, in this perspective of testing, page scripting is about user acceptance testing in general. Of course, there's more usage to it, but if you put them roughly next to each other. And the advantage is it's, of course, reusable, which typically is the case with automated tests. Yeah? And continuously, actually. If you use automated tests in general at the end of the line every time, you're not going to save money. It's something that should be running every time you do changes in a pull request, you as a developer while you're developing. And that's the way you started, more or less, you can just open up that pane and just go. Yeah? We put it in between quotes. If you look on the right side, the given when then, before I'm going to implement, I need to have my tests planned. What are the tests? Detailed, what are the steps, the setup given, the execution and the verification. I think on the page scripting side, you also need a plan. The fact that this thing failed was not due to missing plan, but I really planned all the steps. Actually, my recording took 2 or 3 times to really get the right one, because you forget something, whatever. If you don't have a plan and just sit down, it becomes a little bit inefficient. Next to the fact, how do you know if your colleague A made some scripts and B made some? What is the coverage? Are we not duplicating? Are we covering things well enough? Yeah? Nevertheless, it's easier to step in. I fully agree. Test isolation. Anybody familiar with test isolation in execution? If you have the light, put up the light. With test automation, the coded test, we by default run it in isolation, so every time something finishes, it reverts. And with this one, you know, data sticks in the database, and you should clean it up somewhat. You can use pre-built fixture, but then make sure where you run it that it's going to be useful in the sense of that it's already there, it's existing. And as a last one, yes, you can run both in pipelines, and web client execution is always slower than test automation.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about how do you run these page scripts in the pipelines, because the first time I saw that running in the pipeline, it was quite eye-opening for me. This, what you see here on the screen, is running a traditional test in the pipeline. You are developers, you would most likely figure out what went wrong here because you're comfortable with pipelines. But you know who isn't? Testers and consultants. If they see a screenshot like that, they don't like it. Page scripting is using, well, in the pipelines, it would be using a node package called BC Replay. Now, I did put the link up here because we're developers, we like to tinker. You can go and check this out. This is what you would use to run your page scripts. But I would say that maybe you shouldn't, because I do want everyone to actually transition to the managed CI/CD solutions like ALGO for GitHub, Allops or Alpaca, and they are going to implement the support for us to run page scripts in a pipeline. However, I still want to show you how all of that works. You don't have to really take a look at the code here. This is all in the repository, which we'll share later. But let me just show you, if I run this script, what's going to happen is that a couple of browsers are going to spin up. And I have to switch to my monitor for you to be able to see that. What's happening here is you can see that 4 browser windows have spun up. Now, you wouldn't see that in a pipeline, but this is quite visual for us right now. And I can show you, I think this is the one we were executing earlier. No, this one was. It's basically just executing the same page script we saw a couple of times now. That's not too interesting. What's interesting is what happens when all of these scripts are run. When your scripts succeed or fail, the BC Replay tool is gonna offer to you a nice little report that you can run with this npx playwright show report. Right? As soon as you execute this command, it's going to serve an HTML report. Let's wait for it to open up. So I've had 4 different page scripts in a folder that I've run with BC Replay. 2 of them passed, 2 of them failed. If I look at the one that has failed, here's the cool part for me. You get a video of what actually happened there, which means as developers, you could read the code and figure out what went wrong, but consultants can also now troubleshoot when these scripts go wrong in the pipeline, because they look at the recording and they can see, oh, okay, maybe this is what we have to fix. Because here's another thing. This ugly-looking link over here, if you click it, it opens up Business Central with that same page script loaded. And then what you can do is you can right-click one of the steps, and you can say run to here. And it's going to just execute these steps, and then you can manually click through the rest to figure out where did we go wrong, what do we have to fix. And again, consultants can do that. It doesn't always have to be a developer.
That's also what you can share yourself. Huh? You can share a link from the page scripting in this the same format.
Why was this whole running page scripts in the pipeline so eye-opening to me? It's because of the video here. When I saw the video, I was like, okay, consultants can now troubleshoot failing pipelines. That's great. But then I started thinking more ahead. What if we could use this video for instructional videos, right? Because what's the problem with instructional videos we usually have? you create a video, everything looks nice, but then in a couple of months, your application changes. You move actions around, you move fields around, and your UI doesn't look like it looked on the day when you recorded that instructional video. What if we could use page scripting to create those instructional videos? Right? And then when our UI changes, we would just run these page scripts again, and we would get a new video out of it that we could use.
Wow.
But then
Yeah,
why?
you're getting enthusiastic.
Again, like this is really a kind of a dream for me, because why even stop with instructional videos? What about documentation? Documentation has the same problem. We create the perfect Word document with screenshots, with all the highlights. 6 months later, it's useless, because we moved things around, right? What if we wouldn't just take a screenshot and put it in a Word document? What if instead we would say, in this place, take a screenshot from the page script at step 6. Here, put a screenshot from page script at step 9, right? And then again, 6 months later, when we want to update our documentation, we would just have like a magical button that would run all of our page scripts, and our documentation would be updated. Now, I know I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but you know, page scripting today, it's making testing not boring, but tomorrow it could make documentation not boring as well. That would be quite cool for me.
Wow. Yeah.
But that's some ideas that I have for the future. Microsoft also has ideas where they would like to take this tool. What they shared on one of the office hours is a couple of investment areas that they would like, where they would potentially see this tool evolving. So I've put some of them on the slide here. GA for current scope, support simple edit scenarios, capture initial context, localize step descriptions. So maybe, Luke, if I ask you, what's your pick from the ones we see here?
Well, I think the second one, support simple editing. I mean, if you want to give power to the functional people.
I fully agree. I mean, if we had more of an editing support, maybe during the From the Lab session, we could just remove those middle parts out and the script would run again. Then there was another pillar, completeness of current features. Manage suite in UI, manage parameters in UI, YAML documentation, capture extensions involved in script, and increased capture support for controls and highlights. What's your pick here?
The second one, that was the one I wanted to mention, manage parameters. If you want to hand over things to the includes, that's a challenge at the moment. And surely if you create them as a user, as a functional user.
I kind of agree with parameters. My pick here, however, would be the managing suites in UI. Because right now you have to import these page scripts one by one and run them one by one. I think for functional consultants, it would be much easier if they could import 5, 6, 7 different scripts and then manage that through the BC UI. The next group is additional features. Save and manage scripts on the server, custom replay speed, allow testing for values in datasets, cross-role processes, support multitasking feature, and running scripts without client. Your pick?
Yeah, the second one, both in this tool and in the replay of the video. I mean, the video goes vroom, and the replay, well, it would be nice, some steps that you can really follow it.
I have to agree with that one because it does kind of fuel my dream of we could use those videos for instructional videos. But I do also want to highlight the saving and managing scripts on the server. I do think that YAML files, they are best managed if we put them in like a repository, in a Git repository, so we can have version control.
Yeah.
But for consultants, I think it could give them more power if they could also manage these files on like a UAT server at the customer. Finally, we've got additional use cases. Using the tool to document processes, possibly with screenshots. Conversion to BCPT or AL test cases, and using tool for templating or macros for common user processes. Your pick?
Yeah, BCPT. I agree with the other one, but still, I mean, Bert Verbeek showed a nice example that actually we could record as users what we're doing daily and then transform that into BCPT to do the load testing.
I have to mention screenshots. That would really be my dream. If we could have that magic to update everything by just clicking a button and it runs through all of these recordings. So this was a bit on the page scripting, you know, this wave of freshness that it brings to traditional testing. If you'd like to know more, there's a Areopa webinar, there's the BC launch event. There's also a session from Microsoft later today where they will talk more about it.
4 o'clock. So please go there.
But that's not the only way of fresh news that
No, there's more.
This was much newer. So page scripting has been around for like 18 months or so. Data-driven testing, that's something we didn't have before. Mature languages, they did have that. We didn't. And what is data-driven testing in like a short sentence? What it allows us to do is that we build one AL test, but we can then run 18 different test cases which we can keep in a separate file, which again is going to make sure that developers are not the bottleneck. Why did we get data-driven testing? Of course, it's because of AI. Everything right now has to somehow tie into AI. So why was data-driven testing needed so much for AI Test Toolkit? You saw some of that during the keynote. But if I would explain that in my own words, I pulled a couple of slides from a different session that I've been doing throughout the year, the How to Be a Prompt Engineer, where I was talking about how do you build a good prompt, right? But once you have a good prompt, how do you ensure that that prompt is going to stay good? How do you do testing? So I had this example of an AI feature, something very simple, that a user could come into Business Central and put into the box, determine if a discount of 12% can be approved for an order value of 8,000. If you think about it, if this is an AI feature, how do you test that when a user can come up with so many different variations of these questions? Well, that's exactly how you would try to test it. You would try to write down this one sentence, determine if a discount of 12% can be approved for an order value of 8,000, and you would say the expected result is reject. And then you would try to come up with many different questions, right? 7%, 6,000 approve, 17%, 20,000 reject, 3,000, 8% reject. And you wouldn't only play with the amounts, you would also play with the wording. Determine if a discount can I give, is a discount for order value, is a discount acceptable, right? You can even get AI to propose even more questions that you are going to use in your tests. If you're trying to support a different language, you would even have them in multiple languages. And with data-driven testing, you can now package all of that into a JSON-L file, where you put a question and the response, and a question and a response, and a question and a response. And then on the AL side of things, you only need to build one AL test. It would look something like this. The important part here is the AI test context. In the first part of your test, you would pull out a question and the expected response from that file that we saw a moment ago. Then you would execute your AI feature, the verify allowed discount, with this question from the file, which is going to give you an actual response. And then in the end, you only have to kind of assert if the expected response is the same as the actual response. So you only have to build one AL test, but it can execute hundreds of test cases, which are in this separate file, which doesn't have to be the responsibility of a developer. So we really need data-driven testing for AI. I think this is what it was built for.
Yeah. So this AI test toolkit, by the way, you can download it or install it from AppSource. And if you're using a container, it's part of the test toolkit settings. But however, AI, what AI? I mean, let's not only dream about AI. It's not just AI as Tine started. This is about data-driven testing. Yeah? So if we look at it from AL, what we're used to, let's call this the data-driven test toolkit. So you can do this. I mean, you can create one flow, but have multiple inputs. Anyway, that's not depending on whether it's meant for AI. Of course, they need it there. So let's have a little look at what data-driven testing is. This is about testing or describing, as you showed in your case, one main flow. And the rest is actually gathering data, getting your context for both input and output checking. Yeah? So If you need to build only one, let's leave the others to get the input created, right? So when you run it, you need to collect the input and you need to collect, let's say, the expected output and check against that one. So in a simple example, back to my test plan of 3 cases where we add an extended item with extended tests to assembly order. You might recall those 3 test cases. There was a number 1. I don't know if you can read it. I guess so. There was a number 2 on my list, and there was a number 67 on my list. And if you look at the code, it's almost the same. We could go into the details, but the details are parameters that you could define as input. Yeah, so this comes together, development work, into one case with flow. And as you can see here, we have the input part, like on Tina's example also, and we have the output part, or let's say this is how you gather the input part and the output part. By the way, I'm using, like also in Tina's example, the AIT test code unit, and it provides you with a number of things already out of the box. But you're able to build your own things around it. If you want to do it somewhat different, feel free to do that, of course. So this means that in my example, I have 3 definitions of input. Yeah? I've got one mainstream, and this is the definition of input. By the way, it can be in JSON line format or in YAML. YAML has the advantage that it's nicely grouped. JSON has also some examples, but you can longer lines. Probably that makes it a little bit more challenging. So shortly in a demo, so let's move here. I have here an online environment. By the way, I normally work in containers. Why online? There is an issue in on-prem. To run this tool, you get a kind of permissions error. We're in discussion with Microsoft on it, so it's going to be fixed, but at the moment it only runs in an online sandbox. You cannot run any tests, by the way, in a production environment. So if I open, no, not the AL, but there is an AI, and it's called Test Suites, part of the AL test tool. You can define a suite. I already defined one, and in that suite you can, let's say, list any of your code units with those methods. By the way, one test method per code unit because you link to one data set. In this case, I created that one flow, and I linked to that one flow here the data set. The way you do it is go to input data set, import data set, and here you can go and browse through it or throw it on and put, and you see I've got quite a number. I've actually done the whole conversion for the whole case, and then this data set can be used, those 3 sets as you saw on the slides. And now I can run the test and it's going to execute, and on the left side you will see the result. What is good to know about this, in the background actually it injects in the AL test toolkit. You might know that one already. AL test toolkit, it injects here a suite for this run and for this code unit actually, and for each it expands it per data set. As you can see, this is where it used the first input, the second and the third input from the data set. Okay, let's go back. So this was a short demo on that one. And yeah, the thing is, what I already said, this is actually a group of 9 tests. Yeah? So I created, given 3 sets, the code, and I'll ask my QA colleague to provide the other one. So then the whole set becomes 9 sets. Yeah? Okay. I'm not going to demo that one. If you compare the 2 with each other, of course, it's still, or again, a programmer that needs to be involved, but I, as a programmer, as a developer, I don't need to do the whole work. I can leave the rest to somebody else. So I can come up with all the flows, and what the variants are is decided by a functional role. Okay. Regarding the pipeline, I just said that's a challenge now because of the pipeline will be on-prem, and there's some issue at the moment with permissions. And of course, you run each test in its isolation, and then the next one, cleaning up between the 2 code units, takes some time. So this is going to take somewhat longer than we're used to in the traditional way. But I gather that we're going to tackle that, or get that tackled, of course. Now, how does this all come together?
How does it all come together? Right, so like we mentioned in the beginning, we introduced these two additional testing practices. So page scripting, which can be done by consultants, and data-driven testing, which is partially a developer's job, but partially someone else can add these test cases. So before I kind of explain the story, how does this all come together for our organization, I want to first make it clear that I work with different partners. Some of the partners, we kind of build a feature, and then immediately we build the test automation for it. So a feature test, feature test, feature test. Those are the partners which are not going to benefit as much from these additional testing practices. But then on the other side, we also have partners who kind of create all of the features, and then maybe sometimes they test something. And those are the partners who are really going to benefit from all of this coming together. So how it worked traditionally. I, as a developer, I would kind of create a feature, right? And I would pass that feature to a tester, right? And a tester would try to break it, see if it works, if it doesn't work. If it doesn't break, then that feature is okay, and they add it to the regression testing list. And then everything happens again. As a developer, I create a new feature. I pass it off to the tester. The tester again checks if everything's okay, and if it's okay, they add it to the feature, to the regression testing list. And when we actually try to do like the new publish, the new deployment, we have to go through the whole regression test list to try and test everything out, to see that nothing was broken. Eventually, we do get some time carved out for the developers again, where they can take a feature off the regression tests, and they can create the test automation for it. That's why the star turns into a gold star. The problem, however, is that we have two additional features added to the regression tests, and another gold star and another two features that are untested. So we start to drown in these regression tests, and that's the situation that we always kind of try to avoid. Yeah. This new way of working that we have now goes slightly more like this. As a developer, I still create the feature, and I still pass it off to the tester. But the tester doesn't only try to see if the feature works, they also record the page script for it, right? That's why the star is now a blue star. Now, of course, these page scripts, they're not as, let's say, as efficient, as fast as AL tests. We do want AL tests. But the fact that we now have a lot of blue stars in our regression tests means that when the regression testing period comes around, we can only execute those scripts, and we're done much sooner. Of course, our end goal is that we turn these blue stars into gold stars, but we don't have the time to turn everything into a gold star, and having blue stars helps a lot. Now, how we kind of manage that is that we have something called a test overview. This is not the test overview from our actual organization, because that would look super messy. But imagine a test overview as a list of all of your features. I've listed here some that you will all recognize. So create sales order, post sales invoice, create purchase order. Like all of these features, they have a certain status. Right? What's their status when it comes to test automation? Some of them are gold stars. They have AL tests. That's what we want. That's what we're looking for. But not all of them. Some of them have page scripts, right? But just because they have page scripts, that's not the end goal for that feature. That's why we have another column called target. So where are we going to take this feature once we have some development time ready? Now, from page scripts, we usually want to go to AL tests. But sometimes from AL tests, we might want to go now to data-driven testing. To be completely honest, we don't do much with data-driven testing, partially because the AI Test Toolkit was released last month, and partially because we still have to go through a bit more upskilling so that we can recognize which features are a good fit for data-driven testing. One example that I put here is posting sales invoices, like the VAT posting. You can have many different VAT percentages, different VAT posting groups, and that all ends in a different VAT specification. That, to me, sounds like a very good example where I can have one AL test, but then all of these test cases, that can be created by the consultants, by the testers. Now, because we don't have enough time to create all the gold stars. That's why we also include this column of priority. Right? So when we actually have time for the developers, the testers decide this feature should be picked up first. Maybe because the page scripting is way too complex, it's too brittle, it's breaking too often. That should be a high priority for us to turn it into an AL test. And I really wanted to show you this test overview because it kind of showcases that it's not one tool that's better than the other tool, that's better than the third tool. It's all three working together. We start with the page script, but we don't end with the page script. We continue to an AL test, and now we'll continue with some of the AL tests that will turn into data-driven tests.
Yeah.
And now I think it's maybe time for a quick recap.
We're getting close to the end, I guess. So looking back, what we discussed was, let's say, testing as such and the huge effort you have to put in regression testing if you do not automate it. Yeah? Looking at those two charts, which I also referenced to, manual testing is short running. The value of is only at that time, and the next time you have to do it all again. While the automation, and that's part of the what we're adding today with the, let's scratch the boring, yeah? The fun part. Well, the fun part also in Savor has a lot of repetitive work, is that we can enable functional roles to also get included in the automation, both through page scripting and through data-driven development or data-driven testing. If you look at it this way, in this graph, let's say in the traditional one, the right side is the biggest load is on developers. Although, as said, it is a functional exercise in the end. But with page scripting, it tends to turn the other way around to the functional roles more. And with data-driven testing, you could say there's a kind of balance where maybe development is way much less than before, but you give the power to the QA. You could come up with a test plan with 9 cases in my case, but later on they could actually find out we have 3, 4, 5 extra, and it's just a matter of updating the data set. So take that home, discuss it, spread it around. And yes, I think this is a good way of looking at it. We'll never get there in one day. We want to get somewhere for next week, and then the next month, whatever, set up a plan what you're going to do, which options you're going to use. And yes, I agree, the goal should be, if you have page scripted tests, to really automate them in the end. But I guess, and I think maybe that's the next project to get that into AL code, right? Having AI helping us to create the AL ones. So as a summary, testing is still needed, of course, and maybe that's a very open door. Well, it's a very open door. I think, and I hope you agree, that test plan is still important because in both or all 3 of the cases, you need to know what you're going to do. Page scripting is going to give control or putting a load on the QA side, and DDT gives you the benefit of both, making it much easier to spread the work around the team. That brings us on to the end, I guess.
I guess so.
Quite some time left to get some questions. As mentioned, the whole code is to be found on this GitHub repo. Of course, the link is behind it, but the slide deck will be shared. And oh yeah, what was this last time? Oh yeah, this week during the webinar. The workshop. We had this workshop on creating a test plan from user stories by creating a rightful or a useful prompt. And at the end, we asked the whole group, please now create a haiku from your test plan story. So we said to them, there will be a winner. So we have 2 winners, actually 1 winner and a 1 beside everybody, you could say, because of the context. But the winner for the workshop haiku competition is Betula Senjis, sorry. Volumes rise and fall. Bulk orders must not lose track. Integrity wins. I don't know what the user story was, but we like this very much. And then another one, getting emotional again. This was one actually way beyond what we were doing, but we liked it very much. Why must I test it? It runs fine for me only, or only for me. That's the bug I missed. So both can come up to us, and we promised a prize, so you will get something. So we're getting to the end.
What are we gonna do? We still have a couple of minutes.
We have too many time for questions, and
Do
we
we just
have only 4 T-shirts. Well, I don't know.
Could we do something else?
Yeah, I don't know.
What's happening?
I don't know. I would say.
Dans ma vie chantent deux oiseaux. Dans ma vie chantent deux oiseaux. Chantent deux oiseaux.
So,
Where did you go?
well, I went into my lab. This is a nod to Vincent and all of his amazing from the lab sessions, right? But I took some time for the past few weekends to go into my lab and try to see if I can make that dream that I was kind of announcing earlier a reality. Right? What I was trying to do was I was trying to see if I can get more use cases out of page scripting, if I can get page scripting to not only make testing more exciting, but if I can also get more out of it. Because with page scripting, we already talked about it's using this node package BC Replay, where you throw in a YAML file and what comes out is a video. So if I show you this video again, I'm just gonna switch to the one that passed. You know, here's the example. Let me play it. The problem with these BC Replay videos is, first, this is not a good quality, but the bigger problem is that it replays way too fast. If you would use this as an instructional video, I don't think there's a single person who's able to follow along what's happening here.
You're cute. I don't know. Where are you heading?
Well, you know, when I was looking at this, I went a bit deeper into what BC Replay is. So let me just get this working again. Yeah, so BC Replay under the hood actually uses something called Playwright. Playwright is a very common framework used for test automation, well, the UI automation of web apps. It does the exact same thing as the BC Replay did for us. You throw in a Playwright compatible script and it gives you a recording. But here's what Playwright can do on top of that. It can highlight clicks. It can change replay speed. It can capture screenshots. So that got me thinking, can I use Playwright? Can I use these under the hood parts to get more value out of my page scripts?
Did you hook the Microsoft feature?
I did some experimenting. So here's the video that I've created now with putting some magic into Playwright. Let me put this into full screen. First of all, oh, you don't see it. Thank you for the reminder. So first of all, it's better quality, but that's not the biggest added value. The replay is now slower. And I'm highlighting clicks that have been executed. Now, if I throw this to like an end user, they might be able to follow this instructional video as it goes through and shows you how do you set up an item for the extended text feature. But, you know, like I said, why stop at instructional videos? The next thing that I've done is that I've created a bit of a documentation for this feature. I have this Business Central assembly order with extended text guide, which, yes, has this video recording. But maybe you're a person who doesn't like to just watch video recordings, so I also made a step-by-step process where you log into Business Central. This is what you have to click. You navigate to items. You create a new item. You select the template, you configure the item settings, and so on, all the way here to the last step, where we enter the item into the assembly order. Now, like I said before, here's the problem with these documentation documents. Let me install an extension that I've created for this example. Let me go to Extension Management. I call it Update UI Page Script. So let me install this one. Okay, and let me navigate to one of my items. So if I show you the screenshot here, you can see that this is how the item card looked like. All of these fields available. This is how the fact boxes looked like. Now with my new extension installed, there's far less fields here. The picture has been moved down. The fact boxes look differently. I also changed a lot of the things on the assembly orders. I moved the actions around. I moved the sections around because that's
now
what
you
we
need to
do.
record it again.
Well, I will try to. But this is what all of you are going through. You're changing your UI, but these documentation sites that you've created get obsolete. So wouldn't it be cool if we had this magical button that could update all of it? Well, that's the magical button that I tried to create. I put this whole repository on GitHub. It's highly experimental, the Playwright Docs magic. But if anyone wants to kind of navigate through what I've been doing, this is my magical button. Update docs with my script that's now Playwright compatible. And if I execute this, we will see the same thing you've seen before. A browser will pop up, and now it's starting to record things, but it's also highlighting things that I've clicked, things that I've inputted, the buttons that I clicked. And because we have to wait this 1 minute for this whole recording to go through, I'll kind of narrate what's happening. So we navigate to items, we click on the new item, we select the template, we show more fields, we enable the extended texts, we enter the description into the description field.
This is the new item card.
Then, yeah, this is the UI, how it currently looks in Business Central.
Oh,
We're now navigating to extended texts. We're going to create a new extended text, give it a description, give it a certain line, and now it's going to go out, close all of the pages down, and start navigating to assembly orders. So it goes into the assembly orders, it creates a new assembly order, goes into the type, sets the item, and finally puts in the item number. And now everything's going to close down because the script is finished. Okay. So we re-recorded everything with the script that I already had prepared before. Now if I navigate, you can see that this is the screenshot in my documentation. All I have to do is press F5. And now you will see all of the screenshots in my documentation have been replaced with new screenshots that still highlight everything that was clicked.
Wow.
But I don't have to spend even an hour collecting new screenshots, putting them in. I just run all of my scripts that I've created, and with a refresh, everything's done.
so testing is no longer boring, but
Documentation isn't either.
Wow.
The way...
But wait.
Thank you.
So can you just put a pull request, this in a pull request for Microsoft, or?
I hope so. I think we kind of have to all look into the direction of Microsoft and say, can we maybe get a bit more love into page scripting instead of just AI? And hopefully this becomes a reality. Like the way I imagine how Microsoft can do this for us is if we first take a look at the YAML we've been seeing today, what if there was just a simple new property? I called it slow-mo because that's how Playwright calls it. A property where you specify when you click on these actions, it should be like a second, 1.3 seconds delay between you execute the next section. So it's a bit more followable. On the individual steps, we could define that highlight through, right? Highlight what you've clicked, highlight what you've entered. On top of that, what if there was a property called screenshot name where you could enter the screenshot name and it would save that screenshot into a certain folder that you can then reference when you're building your documentation documents up. And like this is the YAML view. I wanted to show also how this could be part of the UI for consultants to be able to do the same thing. This is the properties page of one of the steps. Well, what if there were just two additional buttons? One where you can say, this step I want to have highlighted, and another one where you could supply the screenshot name, and that would save the screenshot whenever the recording is at this step. So I really wanted to kind of turn this dream of the future of documentation into a bit of a reality, and this is also kind of the end part of the From the Lab section. And with that, I think we come to the last part, which is,
Questions?
well, just before questions,
Thank you.
a big thank you to all of you.
There is a question out there. I think you should just be able to talk into.
Prova.
Yeah, well, we
Okay.
receive.
We've got 3 t-shirts available.
I have one question about page scripting. This morning, we saw several things about, for example, variable, condition, and so on. I think about when the user intercepted the error, but this error is fired by error info object.
Yeah.
And this suggests to user, for example, open a card and fix. In this case, the page script can go on to the steps.
There is
the
an
next
issue with
step?
there's an issue with errors, and this specific one I don't know, but recording errors and replaying is still a problem. So the exceptions, unfortunately, is at this moment an issue in the page scripting. This specific one with the error info, I must admit, I didn't try yet, so I'm not sure. So you would expect pushing the button that it continues with the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not sure about that. If you have, let's say, old-fashioned error messages, like on the bar, underneath the bar, etc., that's an issue at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, and if I intercept this error and, for example, in conditional include different YAML file.
Yeah, there is a
additional-
possibility that you have conditional steps, what is going to follow after that.
Okay.
Yeah? Not on the includes, by the way.
It's
Yeah.
not possible based by a conditional. This
No.
okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
You throw, I throw. 1, 2. Yeah, 1, 2. Now, come on. Another question.
Hi,
Hi.
I've got 2 questions.
2.
Possible.
1
Yeah.
shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, 1 shirt. The first question, you showed us you can work with Playwright in combination with page scripting. Do you know whether it's also possible to work with Cypress?
With?
Cypress.
No idea.
What,
Do you?
what I've shown here, I didn't really take the page script as such and feed it into Playwright. That doesn't work. So the way this actually works is Playwright throws your page scripting recorder into Business Central, and Business Central runtime is executing these steps. I went through a bit of vibe coding to get myself a bit of a script that transforms the page script recording as such into a Playwright compatible script. So there's no direct way for Playwright, which means there's also no direct way for any other framework.
I see.
There was one?
The second question is, as far as I know, page scripting is still in preview, right?
Yeah.
Do you know anything about when it's going to be?
Vincent Nicolas mentioned this morning that they're getting close to GA, so meaning that it's going to be out. Actually, if you go to the session from Vasil, I forgot the other names, this afternoon at 4 o'clock, they were going to show some things. Actually, a couple of things that we didn't show yet. So go there. Yeah? 1, 2. Ah! Both a bad one. Here you go.
Hi, you showed.
The other way around.
Okay. Hi. You showed that you split up the page scripting file in different parts, and you said that there's an issue with the passing variables from this.
Yeah.
Is there a workaround?
Well, I think in the file yourself, you can do a little bit more than we tried so far. In that session, they will also talk about that. So go there if you want to learn. We need to learn too. I put a question on Yammer already on that. They said go to the session. So that's it for now. Then we have 1 shirt remaining. Yeah, you throw, I throw again. 1, 2. No, come on. You throw, I throw. Here you go. And now one far off. I'm just looking. Do I see somebody has hand somewhere there? Whoa!
Yeah, I probably have a pretty simple question. I'm sorry if I missed the information in the session. I wanted to know, relating to data-driven testing, you can import datasets. Do you have to create the datasets per hand, or is there an easier way to provide datasets for AI testing?
You can use GitHub Copilot.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what
Actually,
we were trying.
Tina signaled me, you have to be faster. I was talking too much. That was what I wanted to show. Once you have 3 variants or whatever, the next one is relatively easy using GitHub Copilot.
Okay.
Yeah?
Thank you
Is
very
that
much.
enough an answer?
Yeah, it's okay.
Are you the first one that throws at the same time as I do? Yeah. Another question. No shirt, sorry.
Up there. Oh, that's going to be a long throw.
Where?
Up.
Whoa.
Could you have
I'm
long
going to
legs?
reach you. 1, 2. Oh,
Oh, back to you.
almost. You have to walk down.
Hello, hello. Yeah.
Hey, hello.
The two question and a mention. When it comes to manipulating a page script, many sections contain the property runtime reference. I've seen in my testing that manipulating this, especially when it comes to conditional statement, it can break script, but I cannot find any clear documentation on why it breaks.
Yeah, there's no documentation at all. I don't know either. And it's trial and error.
I think, like, I'm not sure if YAML documentation is part of the, like, things they have to get sorted out to call it GA, but I think that's going to be part of it. So whatever the investment that they currently are putting into page scripting, which then I expect would kind of surface around the next release time, I'm hoping YAML becomes part of that so we can at least understand what's in there.
We can only hope.
Yeah.
Well, to add a little bit to that, it was a bit the picture like AI, and page scripting is going to suffer from that, but they really are adding something now, and that's what they're going to present. So, and there was some statement on that documentation was going to come on that. Yeah.
And there is something I would like to mention. When it comes to page scripting, and I do not know whether it's intended behavior or not, a page script does not seem to care about whether a field is visible or not. It cares about whether a field exists, not sure whether enabled matters. So if a field is invisible on a page, but it still exists within the code, it will still validly put data into this field. I'm not sure whether that's intended behavior or not.
When I tested it, was working like you expected. So I'm not sure about your statement, whether that depends on mine, whatever, on the version. Let's get in contact. We did an explicit test because I mentioned a tool like Ranorex. Those generic visual tools have problems when something moves. So what we tried, and one of the reasons to move, is that it's very costly. We tried, like, if we remove a field, yeah. If we remove a field, it fails. If we move a field, it just continues because it doesn't need to know where, it only addresses. So this looks different, so let's see.
Look to maybe.
And if I hope and I think you hope too, that I'm right, because that's what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Look,
Yes.
can I add to that?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So we noticed the same behavior back in December, but we sent, like, I remember sending a huge email to Microsoft, and it does seem to behave better in the BC27, so the preview version which you can get. Maybe they fixed it. That's why Luke didn't have the same issue.
No, I tested on 25 already.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, there's not a discussion. Let's see. Yeah, I got no shirt. Sorry, and now I failed to catch. That's it. We're on time, I guess.
Yeah, we're on time. So again, thank you all for coming. And
Yo!